So now we're going to go into another fun segment that we both like, is our ranking segment. Again, we had a kind of a difficult time coming up with a topic for this week, so we divided it. Usually we do a top 10, but we have 2 topics and we have a top 5 for each.
Right.
So you want to tell them what they are?
So we got the top 5 MVP candidates through week 6.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a whole list of NFL players, we went through their numbers, and kind of have our front runners for almost the midway point through the NFL season. And then with the trade deadline coming up, you saw us do the offseason moves for the NBA last week. This week we're doing trade deadline moves for the NFL that we want to see.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You can kick it off.
Okay. My number 1, or we do 5 to 1 or 1 to 5?
5 to 1.
Okay. So for my number 5, who's been struggling, I'm going to stick with Josh Allen. I think he's still. I'm going to give you a heads up. All mine are quarterbacks. I wanted to include Derrick Henry in there, but I couldn't pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 5 is Josh Allen. He's been good. Like we talked about earlier, his first 3 or 4 games he was going off. They were 4-0. He's got 1,700 or 1,700 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So again, he's been struggling lately, but I think I'm high on this week. He was in my fantasy lineup, and I think he's a big week, and he's gonna come back on track and in the MVP conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he fell off after the Titans game.
Titans game, yeah. Titans and the
Yeah,
Chiefs.
he had 2 tough consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
The last week you could kind of blame it on the weather. The Titans, he was just bad.
Yeah.
So I think from that, he was probably 3 or 2 at that point.
Yeah.
Before that.
Yeah, that speaks because he's a young quarterback, and for the first 3 weeks he didn't really play tough competition. I think it was, I don't know the exact teams, but it wasn't anything special. And the last 2 weeks have been the Titans were undefeated, and the Chiefs who had 1 loss, but the Chiefs probably still considered the best team.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but I'm hoping he comes back on track.
Yeah. I'll come out and say Josh Allen is not on my list. I think those 2 performances and the 2 losses against good teams kind of derail his kind of resume there. At my number 5 spot, I got your guy Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
He was the front runner, or at least the second going into last week, was putting up huge numbers and with huge wins with no receivers. And so we kind of saw that with Carson Wentz a couple of years ago, where like he had no receivers going on for a couple of weeks. He was front runner, and then he got hurt or he had a bad game, and then we lost all interest in it.
Right.
But Aaron Rodgers was on pace for the best year of his career, with the exception of last week. I think last week kind of threw everything off kilter and threw everyone off the Aaron Rodgers train. So that's why I have him as low as that.
Okay. So I have him at 4. So not a huge discrepancy there. I thought he was definitely, if not 1, he was 2. He was firing on all cylinders. But I don't think he's out of the conversation yet. Like I wouldn't say like a Kyler Murray like jumps in, or even Josh Allen. I still have faith in him. And everyone before the season was talking about he's getting old. Jordan Love's gonna come in. I don't believe any of that. So I think he had that 1 bad week. Like last year, he kind of had a bad week against the Chargers and the 49ers, who he never plays well against really. But I think he's gonna get back on track, and that's why I have him at 4 spot.
My number 4 spot, I have Ryan Tannehill.
Okay.
Ryan Tannehill is completing 70% of his passes. He's been statistically the best QB in the NFL since being inserted in the starting role last year behind Mahomes.
Yeah. Not a big, like, he's right there.
Yeah. And he's so slept on, like, by the media, by just the
Everyone,
NFL.
yeah.
Because like you watch Titans games and you're just like, oh, Ryan Tannehill is like kind of doing what he's supposed to do, blah blah blah. And you look at it and you see he's completing 70% of his passes. He's got like 3 touchdowns, 300 yards every game. So like it's kind of like it gives a certain shock value to it, which is why I think that they kind of they sleep on him, and then like he kind of slips under the rug. He's another one that kind of slips under the rug, and so he's got to get some credit.
Yeah. Hey, they're undefeated.
Yeah, they're undefeated. They beat 2 pretty good teams 2 weeks back to back. They have another quality win in the first couple of weeks as well. I think that with their schedule and his resume, you can't not put him in the MVP discussion. I don't think he's top 3 yet, because I think there's a guy that's a little more valuable.
Okay. So I have Tannehill at 3. I had him at 4. The 5-0 bumped me a little bit. I mean, we don't have to go in detail because we just talked about that, but I think 5-0, and he's been consistent, and I think think you gotta give credit for what he's been doing. He's been great for the Titans and great. It's crazy how since he came to the Titans, he's like just rejuvenated his career.
Mhm.
Like he was kind of like okay with the Dolphins a couple of years, didn't really do much, but ever since he came to the Titans, got his job, he has been a top 5 quarterback for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And he's been great.
It's been a wonder that it took him as long as it took him to get that starting job in the first place, because if I don't think anybody else saw this coming. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think his own coach saw it coming, so it's a testament to how he's kind of ascended into the top 10 QB conversation.
Definitely.
If not top 5, I don't know. I think you could very easily name top 5 quarterbacks that are better than Ryan Tannehill, but statistically, to this point, after the last 2 years, he has to be a thought. At
Yes,
least.
no, statistically, definitely.
But like I said, there is a guy that's a little more valuable on his team, and his name is Derrick Henry. He's again the league leader in rushing to this point, has made the Titans a real contender for 2 consecutive years. And he's starting to be part of the passing game as well,
Yeah.
which is a new element that we haven't really seen from Derrick Henry, because you've kind of had guys in the Titans offense where they have a receiving back, but this year he's kind of served as like their everything back. So with that being said, he is winning them games. Like he won them the Houston game.
Yeah.
So, and talk about value, I think you could put Marcus Mariota back in and they would be worse, but they wouldn't be as significantly worse had you not have Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
So I think that as far as value goes, Derrick Henry is the most valuable person on the Titans.
What do you rank him as like the top running backs?
I think you gotta have him 2.
Yeah.
I think you gotta have him at 2. I think CMC still holds the title, but you gotta have him. At this point, you have to put him at 2.
Yeah. I would say definitely 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Because when McCaffrey, like last year, he was unbelievable, and I hope he comes back healthy.
Yeah, and even before he got hurt, the first 2 weeks, he was right on the
Oh,
same
yeah.
track.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to take it away from him because he's hurt. I have to see when he comes back, but I will have a short leash on him,
Yeah.
because if Derrick Henry continues at the pace that he's been going at, he's gonna overpass him
Mhm.
eventually.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. He's an animal.
Mm-hmm.
For my number 2, I have Patrick Mahomes. He's got 1,700 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. He's the best quarterback in the league. I know Russell Wilson's been better this year, but in my opinion, he's the best quarterback in the league. And I mean, the talent speaks for itself. He might go down as the greatest quarterback of all time if he keeps winning these Super Bowls at a young age.
He should.
Yeah.
I mean,
And talent-wise, definitely.
He's definitely the most talented. I
Yeah.
think he's the most talented that we've seen in the league since Cam Newton came onto the scene, and he kind of had his MVP run.
Yeah.
And his kind of build and what he was able to bring to the quarterback position has been nothing that we've ever seen before.
But that
And you
way-
can say that the same thing about Mahomes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I also have him in my number 2 spot. He's completing 67% of his passes. Chiefs are again Super Bowl favorites, and he's beaten 2 really good teams pretty convincingly. In the Ravens and the Bills. And I mean, if he is borderline 1 right now, just based on like the quality of wins that he had, and he's
Yeah.
putting up the same numbers as he did his MVP season, the same caliber of numbers. But he has that one just kind of disheartening loss against Oakland or
Yeah. Oakland. Yeah.
Las Vegas.
I was
Vegas.
trying to think
Vegas.
that.
Forgot about Vegas. But yeah, if you don't have that in his resume, the gap at least is a lot closer between him and Russell Wilson, but he's not there.
No, I totally agree. I have Russell Wilson at 1. I mean, if you talk to anyone, probably he's the unanimous number 1. He's undefeated. He's got 19 touchdowns. He's probably the clutchest quarterback in the league.
I'd say.
Would you say? Yeah.
You haven't really seen Patrick Mahomes in a lot of
Sample size is
situations
small, yeah.
yet. So to this point in their careers, I would say Russell
Yeah.
Wilson has the edge there.
Yeah, he's been great, and I expect him. I think he's ultimately. I talked about my hot take a couple weeks ago that Aaron Rodgers was going to win MVP, but if I was a betting man, I'd go with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, he's the obvious choice at this point, and have him as my number 1 as well. He's leading our top 3 in all major QB stat categories, and he's pulling away with bad weeks from Rodgers and Allen in back-to-back weeks, pretty much, because Allen had the bad week the week before this week. He didn't really have a terrible week, like I said, he was living on the weather,
Yeah.
and then Aaron Rodgers was terrible this past week too. So the gap is very, very far.
Yeah. And he didn't even play this week.
And he didn't even play. He didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can't not say that he's the MVP to this point too.
Yeah, I like that. So now for our next ranking segment, our top 5 trade deadline moves.
Mhm.
You take that away.
The NFL trade deadline seems to be one of the quieter trade deadlines
I was
that we have
reading
in
some
national
stuff,
sports.
like the NBA probably, would you say NBA is higher than MLB?
Yeah, NBA, and then I would even put MLB to a point because there's a lot of good minor leaguers that you see come up and be stars.
Right.
Like you saw Tyler Glasnow get dealed like 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and so like you have a lot of star potential there, and like there's a lot of moves that are always ongoing, and so there's more active. NFL doesn't really have a lot of trades, but this year seems to be a little different because there's a lot of teams and a lot of contention races that are missing key parts of their team. So I think that's what kind of sets this season apart, which is why we decided to go to rank these potential moves this week. So at number 5, I got Leonard Fournette to the Bills. The Bills are in desperate need of a running game. He's not really needed in Tampa Bay anymore. Ronald Jones has kind of come onto the scene and taken over that role. And I think if you have Fournette overlap him at this point, that's going to cause a chemistry issue because Tom has gotten used to Ronald Jones being back there. He's been active in both the rush and passing game. And since Fournette's been injured, they haven't really missed a beat.
Yeah.
So that being said, the Bills lost out on the Le'Veon sweepstakes. And then still the kind of guy that I feel like is still a little up for grabs at this point. The one back that they can reach out and get.
Yeah.
So I would like to see Fournette to the Bills this trade deadline.
I was never a fan of him going to the Buccaneers in the first place, just because I thought Ronald Jones was going to have a breakout year, and he's last year he was great, and I think he could have like if he went to the Bills and got traded there, he could be a top 10 guy right now. Like he could have went off for them.
Absolutely. I didn't see Ronald Jones coming onto the scene the way he did.
Yeah.
So I was one of the ones, I called this in our fantasy group chat, where as soon as he got released by the Jags, I said he's going to go to the Bucs.
Yeah.
Because the Bucs have a need at running back, and Tom needs his pieces. So I called that, but standing here now, seeing what Rojo has done through 6 weeks, 6 weeks, I think you have not no choice, but you should probably look to move him because there's really no spot for him at this point because he's going to demand the ball, and you don't really have the ball to give him.
Right. My number 5, I'm going to go with, I talked about this earlier, or last week actually, Dwayne Haskins gets traded to the Steelers. So, obviously, he's not going to take Big Ben's spot, but I think Big Ben's he's getting old, and he's getting hurt a lot, and Mason Rudolph is not the franchise quarterback. His head's probably still broken. But I think Dwayne Haskins needs it out of Washington. He still, I think, needs a second chance probably with a better team, and the Steelers, our receiver core is tremendous. So I think he maybe serves as a backup for a couple of years and kind of learns a little bit from a Hall of Fame quarterback, and then maybe eventually takes that job.
Yeah, I mean that kind of caught me off guard because I didn't really think the Steelers were in the market for a quarterback right now. But yeah, that would make sense in a backup role. Big Ben's very injury prone. We all know that. They're going to be in the middle of the title race, so they're going to need some guy. Mason Rudolph isn't going to win you any games if Big Ben goes down. So yeah, I think that would be a good move. At my number 4 slot, I have John Ross of San Francisco.
Okay.
My guys need another wide receiver weapon. Brandon Ayuk has been okay. Deebo Samuel's back, but you don't really have a wide receiver core there. You have a bunch of guys that are up and developing. I think John Ross is another guy that you could develop, and then if they develop all at the same speed, because they're all very young as well, you can see the Niners have one of the best young wide receiver cores in the league. Quite frankly, with those 3 guys, that kind of presents you with youth, speed, and athleticism.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what the Niners are missing in their offensive game right now.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. To piggyback that, I have John Ross or Kenny Stills coming to the Packers. Packers need another receiver. John Ross is probably still one of the fastest guys in the league. He's been hurt, and Kenny Stills has kind of been an afterthought with the Texans, who haven't been good, but they have kind of a 3-headed monster. I feel like with Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb, and I think he kind of wants out. And the Packers, I'm a big Packers fan. They need another guy.
Yeah, we both need John Ross in our lives.
Exactly.
But so at my number 3 spot, I have AJ Green to Philly. AJ Green
I like that a lot.
Yeah, AJ Green is not really used as the wide receiver that he once was in that offense anymore, and they have pieces to kind of make up for it in Tyler Boyd, and if they decide to keep John Ross, they can do that.
Well, T. Higgins is good for them too.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
I knew they had another.
He's probably gonna be like a new AJ Green when AJ Green was younger.
Yeah, definitely. So that young receiver core it can hold over an AJ Green trade, and you could kind of get rid of the burden of having to re-sign him and everything, and Philly could finally fill that gap and not having a number one guy in the passing game. They expected Alshon Jeffrey to be that. He hasn't really been healthy ever. Deshaun Jackson hasn't ever been healthy since he returned to Philly. AJ Green, full health right now, has been a number one guy before. He's been proven a former top five wide receiver, I would say. And Philly needs a guy.
Yeah.
So AJ Green can serve as that guy.
No, I like that. I've always been a fan of AJ Green, so I would like to see that. My number 3, Matt Ryan gets traded to the Bears. So I feel
They're looking to deal Matt Ryan.
no, they're not. I mean, I read an article. It was like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. If they want to clear up kind of the cap space and just straight up rebuild, they let go of the 2 guys.
Who's the backup there right now? I don't know. Matt Shaw?
That's the first thing that came to my mouth. I don't think he's still there. This was kind of more of just like a bombshell that I would see. Because the Bears, I don't think they want Nick Foles for the future. I don't think Mitch Trubisky's the answer anymore. And maybe they're 5-1. They get a proven NFL MVP who's old, but I think he's still got a couple years left. That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, that one came out of left field. I was not expecting Matt Ryan to make an appearance on this list.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, it would serve well for them definitely.
Exactly.
But I don't see the Falcons moving on from
Yeah.
Matt Ryan at a trade deadline. I think that's more of an offseason move.
Yeah,
this year.
I didn't see that either, but it was kind of something that I would like to see,
Right.
and something that I was kind of having trouble with my top 5. So I was like, let's just go with a bombshell.
Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna flip flop my 2 and 1 spots here because I think one has a little more shock
I
value.
flipped a couple of mine too.
Yeah, I think mine has a little bit of more shock value here. But so my number one moving back down to number 2 is there's going to be a new QB in Dallas or Cleveland by the end of the year. So Mariota's going to be on the market, I'm sure. Jacoby Brissett's going to be an option. Fitz is going to be an option if Tua is anything close to what they think he's going to be.
Right.
Which I mean it would be stupid, but I see them moving on from Fitz because like I said, you don't draft Tua at 5 if you're not looking for him to be the guy. So and Fitz is still wanting to play, he still wants a starting role. There's a clear starting role to be had in both Dallas and Cleveland because none of them seem to really be, both Andy Dalton and Baker Mayfield are going to be in the middle of the playoff race, and neither of them really seem to be equipped for such a race. So and then you also have the option of Dwayne Haskins if you wanted to go that route. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks out there right now, and if you wanted to, you could go get them and be a real contender and making the playoffs. You're not going to do anything, but you'll be there. So, yeah, I think that presents them with a much better option than what they have on their plate right now.
No, I like that. For my number 2, I'm gonna stick with the quarterback trend. I'm gonna go with Sam Darnold to be traded to the Colts. So the Colts have another old quarterback, Phil Rivers, who hasn't been great at all. But the Colts are a good team, and I'm still, I wouldn't say a believer in Sam Darnold, but I still see his talent, and I think that he's just been taken advantage of with the Jets and how they're terrible. So I think maybe give Darnold a year or 2 to probably play under Phil Rivers. He learns some stuff, plays with a good Colts team. That would be a good learning curve, and I think he would be a guy that the Colts could see as a guy that was given a top 3 pick in the draft.
Yeah, I don't see Sam Darnold being with the Jets after the deadline or after this year.
Yeah,
I don't really.
I would have
know.
enough if I was him, and Jets, they need something different.
Yeah, they don't really have a place for him anymore if they want to get Trevor Lawrence. So that's just my view on it. But at my number 1 spot, this is a bombshell in its own right, but OBJ goes to the Titans.
Oh, so I have to just say I have OBJ as my number 1. Titans.
The Titans, the AJ Brown has been good,
Yeah.
but Odell could be even better.
Yeah, definitely.
And so Odell kind of makes them from a potential like AFC front runner, like 2-3, to a legit Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah.
So I think that matchup and the fact that he needs to get out of Cleveland and he's wasting away his prime in Cleveland is going to serve for him to kind of have this jolt right out of the gate to whatever new team he goes to. So I think that would that would be something that I would want to see happen just for OBJ to really be utilized again.
Yeah, I 100% agree that Odell needs out, and that's why I have him out in number one spot. But I have him either going to the Packers, who I would love to see, but also the Eagles. Eagles and Ravens, I would say number one and number two guys that just need a receiver. They need a true number one. The Ravens have Marquise Brown, he's a speedster. I'd probably say he's a good number two.
He's another one like John Brown in Buffalo, where he's a slot guy,
Exactly.
and he's a good slot guy, but not a number one threat.
Exactly. And the Eagles don't have anyone that's healthy. So you give still an insane talented guy like Odell to one of those teams, or even the Titans, like you said, and that changed their football team, all their football teams just dramatically.
Yeah.
So and I think that would bring Odell back to the top three, top five receiver that he was with the Giants.
Yeah, I'd say so. We gotta get the best out of Odell eventually. He dyed his hair back blonde, so I think he's trying to get back in that mode.
Trying to change it.
So
I've always been a fan of Odell too. Like I respect his talent, and I always loved watching the Giants. And I don't want to see him. The Browns. I feel like I think Stephen A said this. If you're a pass catcher and win the Browns, you want out. Same with like Jarvis Landry. He should probably want out.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Probably. That would bring the Browns back to where the 0-16 territory.
Exactly.
So that would be a tragedy to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, OBJ. There's no questioning his talent. The only thing that's really up for questioning for OBJ is his sexual preferences at this point. I'm not going to go into detail, but if you know, you know.
For our last segment, we changed it up. We wanted to come up with a kind of cool and fun way to end each episode. So I think was this your idea?
I think so.
Yeah. Explain it. Go ahead.
So we have to find a way to wrap up the show instead of just saying, "Okay, bye" after the rankings. So we're gonna tell you 2 weird things that we saw just in the world this week, not even just in sports. Just kind of venture outside of it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll go first.
Okay.
The YMCA might be canceled. I don't know if you guys saw this week, but our beloved, lovely president had a rally, and I think it was New Orleans.
Okay.
And the stadium or whatever the hell he was at started playing the YMCA, and Trump wanted to bust a move real quick. And I know I wasn't feeling it. I know a lot of people weren't feeling it as well, and I'm not going to be able to do the YMCA anymore at big gatherings. Like, I'm going to take it out of my wedding playlist. I'm going to do everything possible to just disassociate from the YMCA. And I'm sorry for the people that own YMCAs, that go to YMCAs consistently, that those white families cookouts, that I feel bad for all of those. But yeah, the YMCA is definitely under a hot seat now, thanks to our orange guy that we got in office.
I'm ready. I haven't seen the video, so I'll definitely have to look at that when we're done here.
Yeah. And then, did you know that Justin Bieber was in E.Me. by Sean Kingston?
You mentioned that. I want to say I do, but I'm not like.
It was like Bieber hair phase, like 12-year-old Justin Bieber and Sean Kingston, and I don't remember him.
Was he saying
ever?
Yeah.
I don't remember it. I was confused. I saw that come across my Twitter feed the other day, and I was like, what the hell is Justin Bieber doing there? And then he started singing, and I was like, the Mandela effect is a real thing, people. I swear to God it is.
For my 2 weird things, I'm going to tell you about a story of this guy named Adam Rayner. So this came up on my Instagram feed. I don't even know what it was. It was something weird, like the post. I think it's a sponsored thing. So this dude was born in like 1900s. So at the age of 19 in 1918, he was measured at a whopping 3 feet 7 inches. By the time he turned 33 in 1932, he was 7 feet tall. And there was something I read up. Again, I don't know if this is accurate or true. Something I read. So it was likely a result of a tumor where he had this dramatic growth. And by the age of 51 when he died, he was 7'8". He went from 3'7" to 7'8" in his lifespan. What?
I'm trying to picture that in my head, and all I see is if like you blew up a midget a little bit, and like you gave him that bit, because like he's still gonna have the big head, and like I would be terrified.
And so, they said because of this like gigantic ism, whatever they call it, he was bedridden for the rest of his life. He couldn't even freaking go anywhere.
Oh, so you didn't really even get to see him stand up
No.
and be afraid. Oh, damn.
So again, I don't know if this is accurate or if this is like
just crazy stuff. But this is something I read this week, and I just had to add it because I thought it was funny as hell.
Can you cite your source,
Yeah.
please?
Well, I saw it on Instagram, and then I looked it up on obviously Wikipedia, but there was some other stuff though.
Huh.
It was interesting. You have to look at it. I'll look at the YMCA, and you look up my man Adam Rayner.
Rainer?
Yeah,
He's-
Rainer. Adam Rayner. Look him up. That's it.
Alright, yeah, I'll have to look into that one. That was,
Yeah. And then for my second one, this happened today in my Intro to Sports Management class, where I learned about the highest score ever in a college football game was. If take a guess, and it's probably not what you're gonna guess. Georgia Tech beat Cumberland Phoenix, who's
are they still?
they're not relevant at all because of this game, probably.
Are they real? Is that a real college? I think that's
I guess so. It was way back then. I forget what year my professor said, but look at the score: 222-0.
So they lined up only on offense.
Yep. So I'm gonna tell you
No
some stats.
defense were on the other side, pretty much.
Georgia Tech had 0 passing yards. Who won 222-0. They had 978 rushing yards and 32 rushing touchdowns. And Cumberland had negative 42 rushing yards.
And
Imagine that. You can't. 222 points, 978 rushing yards. That's some people's NFL career, first season. That's a good year. They had this in one freaking game.
So, alright, so I understand where the Falcons got their defensive blueprint. That makes a lot of sense. Then the Vikings, they watched that game.
Cumberland Phoenix.
Okay. Cumberland,
Yeah.
are they still, I'm gonna look up
There's-
there, are they
there's-
still a thing? I
there's-
don't know if they're still a thing.
There's no chance.
I mean, I think the University of Phoenix has kind of turned into the online thing.
Oh yeah.
So I think they went to that route. Or,
Yeah.
oh no, it's
Oh,
a
they are
route.
still relevant?
It's a thing.
Oh shit.
They're an NAIA though. Then
Okay. Yeah. They're
That's
long, it's
which
easy.
is awkward
Yeah.
because how you go from D1 to NA? What is an NAIA? I don't
It
even.
doesn't- Well, that's beside the point. There, 222-0. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be possible. You have to try to lose that bad.
All right. I'm gonna break this news. Cumberland Phoenix is in Lebanon, Tennessee.
Lebanon, Tennessee.
Exactly. Why are they Cumberland Phoenix?
Who knows? Tennessee.
What the?
Very, very interesting. So thanks, Dr. Ben, my professor, for giving me that knowledge.
All right. On that note, where my brain is melted now. Yeah. On that note, that is our show.
Yeah.
I think that was a better way to conclude our show, and I definitely learned a thing or two, and hopefully you did too.